I hope I said that right, Tom. Oh, Heinrichsen, sorry. Um, Tom has presented for us before and has a wealth of experience. And hang on, I just got to click on got it. So, the bio that we have for Tom is very short and probably doesn't do a lot of justice as to, who Tom is. I don't know if you're a member of LinkedIn, but if you are, you probably want to connect with Tom. Tom, I always see you posting out there and it's always great information. So Tom is very active on LinkedIn, provides a lot of great content. And for the people that joined late, maybe you could put it in the chat box again, Steve. There was some pre-work to be done that, not sure if everyone's done it, but there's a lot of great information in that pre-work, a lot of good questions, a lot of self-reflection. There's a color wheel to tell, what type color person you are, as far as, are you cool, or are you fiery, etc. So I know, Tom, there's a ladder, as things potentially escalate and you make bad choices. If you escalate and, maybe go down the wrong path. So there's a lot of great things that we're going to cover tonight. The bio that we have just says Tom's problem-solving technology professional, had a lot of roles over his 20 years, probably has about 100 years experience over those 20 years. He's good at solving issues, especially in technology and leading teams. And he's a software developer, Scrum Master, and a manager, but he's passionate about passing his knowledge on to other people. So without further ado, Tom, I'll turn it over to you. And looks like, Steve, you're getting the presentation queued up.
Thank you for the introduction, Bob. Appreciate it. Yeah, I like to keep it short and sweet. I don't want to have somebody read something real long, but I appreciate that. So tonight we're going to talk about Power Skills Bootcamp Communication for Business Analysts. So thanks, everyone. We'll kind of jump into it. We're going to make this interactive, so there'll be some time here for questions and stuff as we go along. So let's jump into it. If there were a Hall of Fame for sticking your foot in your mouth, I would be in it. Since you are a business analyst, you won't be shocked to hear this. Developers don't communicate well. In fact, many of us don't communicate at all. In my 20+ year career as a developer, I've realized the importance of communication. Everyday communication is your bread and butter as a business analyst. It took me a while to come to this realization that conversations are critical. It's Friday morning and we all shuffle into the conference room. Mike, our manager, asks for the status of the integration. Everyone sits quietly, and finally, I speak up. This pile of crap ain't gonna work. I look around and notice everyone's looking at me. Wow, I said something terrible. Then it hits me. Mike, our manager, originally wrote this application, the one I just called a giant turd. The most important work in my career has been communicating, not coding. Where you might think in requirements are key, and I might focus on code, the real work is in connecting and collaborating. Much like toothpaste, bad communication can't easily be taken back. Today, we're going to learn and discuss a lot about communication. My name, as you heard before, is Tom Hendrickson. I am a software developer with many years of experience. I've been a project manager, Scrum Master, and manager of software development. I'm also an entrepreneur. I've hosted Agile and DevOps online events. I've written a few books. I blog and speak to many organizations. I currently work for Blue Cross of North Carolina and do speaking and writing for my company, Code is Easy. Here's our agenda today. We're going to start with an icebreaker, then we'll review the pre-work. No worry if you didn't finish or start, although it is quite helpful. I worked with a learning designer named Anne Remy to create it. We'll talk about listening and do an activity. All this work will help us become better communicators. Are there any questions? And during this time, if you have questions, feel free. You can share them in the chat or come off mute. I'm good with either one. All right, let's get to know each other a little better. A little icebreaker here. So the first question asks us about a favorite film, TV series, or book. So feel free, like I said, you can come off mute, share, put it in the chat. It's really up to you. I will say, I just saw with my son, he's a big basketball fan. We saw the Air movie about courting of Michael Jordan. That was a good one. The Secret of My Success. That's a good one. That's is that Michael J. Fox, I think? Dave Chappelle Show, Top Gun Maverick, very good. Star Trek, Star Wars. Now you say those all together there, Peter. I want to point out technology people like me. Now I'm not this way, but some say there's one or the other. There's not both. So I just want to point that out. I have a good friend that I like to rib about that. For books, I like Memory, Sorrow, Thorn trilogy. Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, good one. Star Trek, Malaysian food, drink lots of water. Very good. David Allen, Getting Things Done. Yeah, that's a good book. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's a classic. The Fountainhead. Yes. When to Forgive. A book. Oh, very good. Very good. Awesome. Harry and Walter Go to New York. Is that a Harry and Walter Go to New York? Is that a book or maybe a movie? I'm not sure on that one. Breaking Bad movie. Okay. Yep. The Babak. Yeah. Foundation series book. Awesome. Lots of good stuff. I appreciate you guys sharing like that. Very good. So with the second question, what is a favorite food? I know some of you, I think, commented on that, but what is a favorite food of yours? Lasagna. Sounds delicious, Michelle. Bacon. Creme brulee. Yes. Indian food. Tacos, tofu. All good stuff there. Very good. Potatoes. Steak on the grill. Yes. Lots of good stuff. Pizza or sushi. Or we could say pizza and sushi, but maybe we don't want to put them together, right? Italian, very good. Yeah. Lots of good stuff. Pasta. Yes. I had chicken piccata tonight. So just so you know, it's almost 9 o'clock here on the East Coast. So I've already eaten my dinner, but some of you are probably getting hungry with this talk of food. Plantain with salami. Interesting. I haven't had that one. Sounds good. A lot of votes for Italian. Very good. Very good. Excellent. All right. The last one might stump you, but I've heard some interesting pizza with anchovies qualifies as pizza. Yes, that is. So the last question, what is your cure for hiccups? Now, as I asked that, I've heard some interesting ones as I've given this. Hold your breath, or a glass of water. Okay. Drink water from the, yes. So the drinking water from the opposite side of the glass. I've heard that a couple times. Breathe into a paper bag. Time, yes. Get scared. What do you wear yesterday? Thinking of the answer. That's good, Steve. Stump them. Drink water. Yeah. Run a 10K. Yeah. Oh, very good. Interesting. But yeah, I've heard the one about drinking water from the opposite side of the glass. I've heard that a couple times. So I always find that interesting. A spoonful of sugar. Yeah. Have someone scare you. Yes, Trish. Very good. Awesome. Good suggestions. Good things to keep in mind. All right. Longest record. Yeah, I somebody had posted that. That's interesting. I think somebody else pointed that out. 68 years long. That's a long time. So, all right, let's review our learning objectives here today, or this evening, I guess. First off, we want to understand basic personality profiles. So as mentioned in the pre-work, It discussed the insights discovery model. So this is a personality profile that is a favorite of Anne Remy, the learning designer that helped me put this together. So just so you guys know, insights discovery is one model. You guys have probably heard of many others. DISC's profile is a DISC, excuse me, is a common one, but there's tons of other ones. The Big Five personality profile, Colby, there's tons of them. But this is just one we'll use just to kind of give us an idea. So we'll do that. Listen for alignment at home and work, and then develop a personal connection with someone in 5 minutes or less. So we'll have an activity to try out on this one. So you guys can kind of, hopefully somebody will be willing to step forward, and we'll have a little discussion and kind of learn this. It's a little framework that I got from a friend of mine that shared with me. So I think you guys will enjoy that. So first off, let's review our pre-work. Had a lot of good information in there. So in the pre-work, we learned a lot about perception, our perception filters, how we see the world. Others' impressions affect their experience too. So we need to try to be aware of the many aspects that impact our perception. For instance, where you grew up can affect your observations, what cultural groups you're part of. Perhaps there are some family dynamics that alter your outlook too. I have quite a few years of Java experience. So, and I recently started learning and working with Vue.js applications. So this is a different JavaScript framework. Not that you guys need to know that, but just my perspective of Vue.js, of course, is filtered through this Java experience. Just like as a business analyst, you might think as you see things and want to see it through that, the lessons you've learned. So some of you guys shared their years of experience as a business analyst. I'm sure there's different things you learn and you filter that perception. So as we get to know each other, we can clearly understand and comprehend others' viewpoints. This can create a more effective communication and mutual understanding. Similar to a compiler, this is what developers use to decode, we can decode our messages we get. Mickey is a quality assurance team member that I've worked with in the past, and she had asked me about my unit testing. Now, Mickey wants to have a better understanding of what scenarios I am checking. Although we just had a bug that caused a major outage, we don't want to relive that one. Now, I realize that Mickey is not second guessing my work, but making sure we can have alignment. This could become a conflict if I thought differently. Think as perception checking as unit testing our conversation to make sure we're both aligned and understanding what we're saying. So a tool that we can use is a perception checking statement. This is a message we can create to check our understanding of someone's words or behavior. So the perception checking has 3 parts: a description, which is a description of the behavior you noticed; interpretation, might have 2 or maybe more interpretations of the behavior; clarification, so we can request clarification about the person, the behavior, and your interpretation. Here's a perception checking statement I could use for Mickey, my quality assurance teammate. Mickey, I notice you are questioning my unit testing for this new enhancement. My interpretation is that you are trying to ensure we cover the bug from the outage. Or perhaps you think I have not tested this change completely. Please clarify what you mean. This is similar to a unit test we have here. So you guys can see this, not that I'm trying to teach you guys coding, but just an example of what developers do. We have a unit test. It checks to see the code works, just like my statement would check Mickey's perception. Yes, great for clarifying requirements from a stakeholder. That's correct, Steve. Definitely want to use that. All right, so we have a scenario we want to go through. So as you can see from the slide, we have a good friend from your workplace that has not joined you for your regular lunchtime walks. During the past 3 days, even though you've left her messages to let her know you miss her and would like her to join you for a stroll. Now, she usually responds to your messages or walks with you. Recently, she hasn't responded. So I want you guys to think about a way to, you could either share, maybe somebody wants to come off mute and share this, or you could put it in the chat too, but feel free to think about a way you could use the 3 steps that we talked about in a perception checking statement to get some feedback from your friend. So feel free if someone wants to come off mute and share, or we can put it in the chat. It's up to you, but just think about this and maybe share that with us. Would anyone like to share maybe a a perception checking statement, or maybe someone has a question? Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't explain that right. Walks are becoming too close. What else? Any other ideas, maybe questions? Maybe somebody's been through a similar scenario, might have some questions or. Yeah, no out of office. Could be on vacation or sick. Yeah, that's true, Peter. Correct, Bob. Yeah, there may be a personal issue that she's encountering. Maybe someone's sick in her family. Maybe she's having some issues. Yeah. It's not you, it's B. Maybe the email system isn't working, going to her junk folder. Yes, that can happen. I think Steve and I learned that today. I think I sent him some stuff and it went to his spam. So yeah, Cynthia has a good question here. I noticed that you haven't met up or replied in the last few days. Walk. Guess you must have been really busy or wanted to make sure everything was okay. Yeah, just kind of check in with them, right, Cynthia? See, make sure everything's okay. Yeah, and that's nice that you offer to talk if they need someone to clarify. Very good. If you did something to hurt her, yeah, can't assume she was hurt. Hurt feelings. Yeah, Gina says start by letting her know you miss her and would be glad she can walk again. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point there too, Steve, as you mentioned a quick drive-by to see what they're doing without mentioning the walk. Yeah, especially if you're in an office, you can do that. There's a misunderstanding between her. She's just preoccupied. Yeah, I can check with her. Has been the sensitivity training. Well, you don't show up, ask if you missed a message. And everything's, yeah. Yeah, there's lots of different ways, isn't there, to kind of check that perception. And I just wanted to point out a lot of times, I'm sure this doesn't happen to you, but I've been prone to have this happen to me where if somebody doesn't show up, you might think, oh, it's something I did. I must have messed it up. We don't think that, a lot of good answers here that you guys have come up, that people might be preoccupied, they might have an issue, they might have, something at work that's come up. You just never know what happens. But very good. So next we want to talk about the pre-work. We mentioned that insights discovery model. It's an assessment. So as you saw in the introductory model or the pre-work, the learning how to adapt and connect with others involves gaining and understanding how you interact with the world and recognizing a color energy. So it talks about color energies and behaviors. So insights uses color energies. So we have within us, so you saw that, I guess, and we'll see this more. If you didn't do it, no worries. We'll kind of walk through this. And like I said, I did put that comment. So just so you guys know, that pre-work link is going to be live after this. So if you want to go look at it, you didn't get a chance to maybe go through the whole thing or didn't get to look at it all, no worries. Go through it, take the assessment. It's not too hard. It just asks you a few questions and kind of figures out. But that has fiery red, sunshine yellow, earth green, cool blue. So, and as it's important to point out, there's not one better than the other. They're just different things that we do, kind of like the DISC assessment. just kind of need to understand where your unique combination of the color energies makes you who you are. So you need to understand that. So we asked you to kind of complete a short one. There's a short insights discovery assessment there, part of this, and it helps you understand your color energy and the different variations of the color energy. I just want to ask, did anybody get a chance to take the assessment? And maybe they can share. I mean, feel free to share. I want to talk about mine, of course, here in a minute, but feel free if you got to share or got to go through it. Yeah, Bob, if you want to share it with somebody or other people in your company, that's perfectly fine. It's going to be active for a while. So
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Mhm.
I did take some of the assessment, and I didn't get all the way to the bottom of it. And I have done DISC and Myers-Briggs before, but
Yeah,
the colors that I had, interestingly enough, I clicked on the keywords and came out 10, 10, 10, and 6. And the 6 was the cool, but
yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
yeah. You'll see that you have different ones, and it's interesting. I can see, so having a little bit of understanding of the DISC, I can kind of see where the similar, if somebody was similar to me, or like I always think about my wife and I talk about these a lot. She's gone through a lot of these with her company, and just kind of to see how how that affects people, in the family, at work, in all different places. So Steve, thanks for sharing that. So looks like you're green, I think, and we'll go to the next screen here so you guys can see this. So this is the kind of and this is, they call this the good day, the bad day slide, kind of showing, you can see. So for instance, like Steve mentions, he's high green and blue. So kind of down at the bottom. So I'm kind of similar. Steve, I think mine was, I think I might have been a 6 and a 6 on green and blue, and then like 2 and 2 like you, but so just subtly different, but similar. But so it's important to kind of think about these as you look at the slide and see, good day, bad day. So for instance, so Steve and I will say, Steve and I are both kind of green, a little green. So on a good day, we can be caring, encouraging, sharing, patient, relaxed. But then on a bad day, we can be docile, bland, plodding, reliant, stubborn. So kind of think about that, in another term, we could use, not good day, bad day, but like say in a stressful situation. So for instance, if I'm stressed, I might get stubborn. I might shut down. That's something I've noticed about myself. If I'm stressed out, tired, haven't eaten for a while, something like that, just think about, it's kind of good things to think about yourself. But, and it talks about this in the pre-work, but kind of where, and they use the term overextended or bad day. So you can kind of think about these things are and how they affect you guys. Same thing happens with me. It's not just, but it's important to kind of think about, your bad day, kind of having self-awareness, and kind of monitoring yourself for stress. As we talk through this, we are all virtual now, but some of us are going back into offices. That might be something different. It's weird to think, but that might be something different for you. So you need to think about that. So last week, actually, the company I work for, so I work full-time for Blue Cross of North Carolina. They had everybody come on site and do a spring fling. So everybody came, they had food trucks, but it was one of those things where I usually work every day from home here in Pennsylvania. So I'm quite a ways away from our office. So it's not like I'm going in once a week, but just kind of monitoring that and thinking about, okay, I'm a little more tired today. This is going to be a little different than my normal routine. Just think about these things, for yourself when you have, kind of monitor your self-awareness. So Steve says I can be pretty stubborn. So yeah, those are things, we need to understand, and you might see where something aligns with, with yourself on these color energies. Mostly green. So Michelle says she's mostly green and a little red. So yeah, so you might have different mixtures, and how you guys are. So did anybody have, did you, maybe learn some insights, I guess, as you went through that? I know some of you could understand, some of you weren't able to go through, but, maybe there was some insights you got here. My desk arrangement doesn't match my color. Yeah. So did anybody have any epiphanies, or maybe you thought, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like me. Or maybe you were surprised. Don't use these words on my resume. Yeah. Yes. It's interesting. I know it's a lot of companies will do that. It's funny you say that, Bob, that a lot of companies will, or some will do. I guess I've been through interview processes where they'll put, maybe not this particular assessment, but they'll try to see where you fit. I think it can be helpful to see where you fit on a team. If you guys have seen my other presentation, Humans Are Hard, Code is Easy, I actually talked through, I worked with a guy named John, and I did a DISC assessment of his whole team, including himself. And it can be kind of eye-opening. People change as they work home versus, that's a good question, Peter. Do they change if they work at home versus on site? That could be, I'm not sure, but I could see where that could affect how you react and how you work. But yeah, that's interesting. I could see where people, I guess, working at home might be a little, definitely a different environment. So, but yeah, I could see how that affected things, but I guess I don't know. I'm not an expert on this one or one of these to know for sure.
Hi, this is Gina.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I kind of had an epiphany. In one section, the adapting and connecting section, where you had to align the cool red, yellow, and green up with what it meant to do that, or what it meant not to do that. I don't know what this all means, but as I took the assessment, on the do's side, I got them all right the first time. Got them all correct.
Interesting.
But on the don'ts section, it took me about 4 or 5 times. I didn't write down what my answers to the questions were, but as I was thinking through it logically, it took me about 4 or 5 times to get the don'ts correct.
Don'ts. Okay.
So I got the do's right the first time, but I don't know if I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm guessing it, I mean, and that's something I could see where maybe it's counterintuitive on some of these to think about, how that might impact someone. But yeah, I suppose we'd have to kind of dig into your answers to see, have a better understanding. But I can see, I can see how that maybe isn't as intuitive as we might think. It can, and that's something we all have to understand. And as we go through, we're always, these are things we can use. Not to say we've all used them, but I think it's helpful to kind of use one just to kind of understand, just to kind of see people, for instance, I've thought back, like through the lens of some of these things, I've thought back to some of the people I've worked with and struggled with. And I see some things where, okay, you might see some things where, okay, I can see where you might butt heads with someone who's a certain style or something, or even to, maybe you might assume somebody's going to come at you a certain way, or you worked with someone for a while and then something comes up, and they might be tired, they might be cranky, who knows? But it's important to kind of, understand that we can come at things differently and change. So, but yeah, I can see how that might impact your assessment there, Gina, and how you see that. Can be maybe not as clear cut as we might think. You can see comfort and affect things. See comfort, yeah. The reds are just different words. Yeah, well, that's an interesting point you bring up, Dennis. So really, it's kind of saying those different words essentially are thinking about. And you guys probably you can think about it from this perspective. There's some things where you might, if we said we're going to make this thing appear positive versus negative, there's various things that we might see that someone's approach, we might say they're energetic, or we might say, oh, they're aggressive, and they're, like it says, competitive versus aggressive, or demanding versus controlling. There's two sides of that coin. So it's a good point though. So really the point of this, the pre-work and these exercises are thinking of ways we can use something like this insights discovery model and apply this. There's a couple different things. So every time you meet someone, you kind of have an opportunity to kind of practice your skill of recognizing their type and adapting to their color energies. And then once you have an understanding of their color energy attributes, you can kind of start to quickly recognize what color energies those around you might lead with. So it's very important to remember that everybody has all 4 color energies within them. Each color energy might show up differently for each individual person, depending on the situation. So you need to think about that, but never label anyone as being only one color energy or another. So that can change and impact. There are ways to get a general sense of what color energy a person might be by leading with at any given time. But when you know that, you can adapt your style and help you connect with that and have better preferences. So, really self-awareness is just kind of ever evolving. It's kind of one of those things where we kind of learn about ourselves, the situation. A few years ago, before, we went completely virtual, I'm sure a lot of us didn't realize how good we could adapt and change so quickly. So those are things that we've kind of learned about ourselves, and we've lived through that. And those are things that we, each situation we've kind of gone through, big or small, work or otherwise, there adds to our experience and helps us kind of reshape and confirm, or at least understand our beliefs and our behaviors. So next up, we want to cover a little bit about listening, kind of understand that, some basics. So some real basics to listening, of course, is first and foremost is to pay attention. Real simple, that's kind of trite advice that you might think, but I guess I think about this a lot as myself, especially in our virtual world. I try to do things like I have in front of me. I actually have just a notebook, and with all the computers, and I am a developer by training, but I try to sometimes go old school and use my notes. As someone said, these pens, they don't have internet access, and it's a good thing, right? It doesn't distract us. Like these things here that we might use to take notes, but they can send us notifications and distract us. So, but I try to use different things to, if I'm having a conversation, to try to take notes. Another thing, if you're in person, obviously make eye contact. But we all have different word perfect 1.0. Yes. So Michelle says emotional listening, very good. Yeah, there's lots of good things, but emotional listening is very good to kind of see empathetically listen to someone. And then of course, show it is a good way to kind of show we're listening. If you're paying attention, if you're talking to me and I'm like this, you're probably thinking, Tom's not paying any attention to me. Hello, can you hear me? But that's one thing is we talk to people, and I know it's funny, I have my earbuds in obviously to hear you guys, but we walk around a lot nowadays and people have these in. So you're kind of, I guess I always assume that if somebody has earbuds in, they can't hear me. So, but just one of those things to help, take notes and make sure we're understanding. And then a good thing to think about is kind of deferring judgment. So if you guys have read the classic Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he walks through a scenario. So he's essentially on a New York City subway. He gets on, he starts to read his newspaper, and a man gets on with his kids, and they start creating commotion. The kids are climbing all over the subway, and the guy's just sitting there despondent. And finally, Mr. Covey gets irritated. He says, "Sir, can you do something about your kids?" And then the man says, "Oh, I'm sorry. We just came from the hospital. My wife just died. The kids don't know how to react." So it's one of those situations where at first Covey thought, this guy, he's not being a good parent. And then he gets his viewpoint of the situation is changed quickly, right? Because he reminds us how we kind of needed to defer our judgment until we have a good understanding of the situation. Sometimes, I'll be first to admit it. You might see something and you think, oh, those people, they did something wrong or something. We assume things in our mind, but sometimes we don't have complete information. So it's important to kind of defer that judgment before we start to, think about, oh, okay, what's going on here? We don't see the whole picture. I'm sure, as a developer myself, you guys are business analysts. Sometimes we see things at work where we think, oh, we see a slice of something. We think, oh, okay, so-and-so's having a bad day, or somebody's really mad at somebody else, when we don't see the whole perspective of what's going on. So it's important to kind of defer that judgment. Don't let your ego cloud your listening. Very good, Dennis. Yeah, it can get in the way, can't it? So a next thing I want to talk about is kind of communication platform. So as BAs, and you guys mentioned the BABAC, this is actually a friend of mine, Sherry Hall from the IIDA chapter in Birmingham, Alabama, shared these. These are from the BABAC. So these are some things that because we were talking through, I was talking through her this presentation, and she had mentioned these were kind of real salient points that she thought would be, germane to this presentation. So a couple of the things that she talked about and said from the BABAC. So these are common communication platforms that, you guys know well. And it's important to think about, where you might have group collaboration, individual collaboration, and then the other email and nonverbal methods. So for instance, group collaboration might be used to communicate, with a group of people relevant to stakeholders all at the same time. So you might have situations where that might be helpful. Individual collaboration. So maybe there's something you want one-on-one to get an understanding, maybe with one particular stakeholder. And then there's other methods too. Might have email. Obviously, I'm guessing a lot of you guys are using things like Slack or Teams. There's a lot of different ways to pass information, to communicate, something. And depending on the information and the explanation needed to support it, sometimes there's things you can do to do that. But I want to ask you guys as BAs, when do you select one over the other? And maybe some reasons why. Feel free to come off mute and share, or you can put it in the chat when you. So Michelle says, I think it depends upon how quickly, you respond to my query. Yeah. So timeliness is a big factor, right?
Michelle, sometimes the introverts in the room don't like to share in writing. And a one-on-one with them can bring out ideas that otherwise wouldn't make it to the surface.
Good point, Dennis. Yeah. Sometimes the introverts, extroverts, depending in the situation too, right? Group meetings or maybe different settings, right?
Right.
Very good. So Peter says casual versus formal. Email can be more formal. Yeah. Need documentation. I will always use email. Yeah, that's one thing too. Good point. Email or nonverbal is good. Yeah. Yeah. So timeliness. Yeah. Email can help keep people accountable. That's true. Or maybe an email follow-up when you have a meeting. You might have a group collaboration and then have an email follow-up just to make sure, okay, Tom, you're going to take this part. Gina's going to take this. Erica's going to take this. Dennis has this piece. But yeah, very good. I want to ask another question. So as you talked a little bit, you brought up timeliness. And now Bob put in there, if too many emails and split threads, it's time for a call. Yeah. That's where I've heard that too, where some people will say that like the 3 email rule, like there's 3 emails on something, it's time to call a meeting, or, other people have different takes on that. But yeah, or email over a quick chat can clear something up like that. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it seems like you get email upon email. But one thing I wanted to ask you guys, we talked a little bit about timeliness. What about what the matter of the message is? Because sometimes the matter can determine whether an email will work, or we need a phone call, or we need meeting right now. Have you guys been in, I'm guessing you guys have been in situations where, the meat of the message can determine that what works best, right? Yeah, Cynthia says some things are more important in person. So what would you guys say as a key to good communication as business analysts? What would you say some of those keys are important to, making sure we're keeping good communication with our stakeholders and with other people? What are some keys to good communication?
I personally think that it's, listening is really key. You don't want to miss, particularly if you're getting some requirements to write, agile stories. It's very important to listen.
Yeah. Paraphrasing, adaptability. Yeah. Reading back what you heard. Active listening. Yeah. Trust a good repertoire. Your perception. Yeah. Confirm expectations. Yeah, that's good, Cynthia. Don't leave the BA out. That's right. Good suggestion, Ronnie. Relax. Don't be thinking about what you want. Yeah, that's really good there. Bob, you mentioned that. Don't be thinking about, okay, what am I going to say next? Because if you're doing that, right, you're not really listening. 3X. So I'm telling you now. That's good advice there, John. Yeah, interesting. 3X message. Good stuff.
Oh, Tom, what I meant was, I always live by communicating the message 3 times.
Okay. Yep. Very good. Yeah, that's one thing I've heard people talk about, over communication and the importance of that, because people get distracted. They hear you, I think I've heard it said, like, if you tell people 10 times, like 3 people will say they've heard it, or 7 people, something like that, where it's like, okay, keep repeating it, because people don't listen or distracted, or, they get mixed messages too. You might hear from various leaders different things, and that's another thing too, I guess. Engaging, reassuring, especially if the SME feels threatened, by a project that might impact their work. Yeah, that's important. We have to keep in mind, Peter, don't we, that there's emotions involved, that if we're trying to change or asking questions about something that might change, might impact how they perceive. Your transparency and integrity, building commitments. Yeah, that's good, Michael. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Yep. Yeah, Bob, I think when I was in Toastmasters, they would say something like that. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Yeah, very good. Very good. Awesome. All right, so next up, we're going to do a little activity. Hopefully someone can help me out here. So we're going to have a little activity. Going to ask for a volunteer. It's just going to be a short conversation. So I just want to point out, so this is going to be kind of a, just a little 5 minutes, or maybe it won't even be that long, but we'll demonstrate it here. But this can be useful for a job interview, can be useful for a product meeting, board meetings, anytime you're, maybe as a BA, you're talking to a stakeholder or something like this. But I just want to point out, this is from a friend of mine. Her name is Sue Baggett. She is with Power Within Consulting. So she uses this. We'll kind of debrief and go through this a little more. But I just would, if someone would volunteer, we could come off mute and just have a short little discussion, just have a few questions. And then we'll, like I said, we'll kind of have a debrief and walk through this. Somebody want to come off mute and join me for a short conversation? Promise it won't be painful.
Sure, I'll do it. This is Dennis.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent, Dennis. Well, I appreciate that. So, Dennis, we're going to start out with a simple question. Tell me about yourself.
I was born a poor white child. And I've been in development and business analysis for well over 15 years. I love SQL and love interacting with people and finding out what they want out of what they're doing at work.
Mhm.
I love participating in lively discussions as well as sitting back and just having a good lunch.
So Dennis, tell me what brought you here.
I want to learn. Like I said, I've been in business analysis for a very long time, but not as a certified business analyst. The roles of business analysts have changed over the years, and I just want to provide a little more structure to my life.
Interesting. So you want to understand structure about the BA world, right? Is that what you're saying? So
That is correct.
yeah, tell me a little more about what that means to you.
It's just I recently acquired my Microsoft Office expert certification, and I did so because my children, who are all nurses, my adult children, they get certified every year. And I said, hey, you know what? I think I need to follow their lead and example and provide a little more certification under my belt. Yes, I can say I've done it. And yes, I can provide recommendations that show that I've done it, but those certifications add just a little extra. So why not get it?
Yeah, very good. Very good. So Dennis, what would you say is your biggest challenge you face?
Well, right now I'm in between jobs, so my biggest challenge is to find a new one. The next biggest challenge is to make sure I retire with enough money.
So how does that make you feel as you kind of go through this process? You're looking for a job. What are you feeling, Dennis?
It's kind of, I don't really know how I feel, because I know that sooner or later something will stick, because I've been through this process before. And it's just a matter of finding the right person to network with to say, I can add value to your organization.
Very good. Very good. Dennis, thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. I want to ask the audience, what did you guys notice there in that conversation with Dennis? Feel free, you can come off mute, or if you want to put it in the chat, however you want to participate, it's fine. Very open-ended questions. Yes, Steve, that's correct. Anything else people noticed? Empathy, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Cynthia. Waited for an answer. Yeah. Sometimes we don't do that, do we, Dennis? Sometimes we just jump or think about, like we talked about before, what we were trying to say. Yeah. Questions is feelings. Yeah, that's a good point. Dennis was making himself vulnerable. We appreciate that. And that's something very important. So Michelle, I'm kind of laughing at your question, because so if we learn about personality assessments, that can kind of give us a clue to what type of personality you are, but we'll go into that maybe some other time, but that's a good point. Yeah, you need to do that to develop a relationship. That's important. That vulnerability is important, isn't it? So another thing I want to ask you guys, so what did you learn as we kind of went through that? Would anything, I know you guys talked about vulnerability. Those were open-ended questions, but what are some other things you might have learned there?
I think, Tom, what I learned is what I feel a lot of times too is, you know, the type of person I am, I react to hearing Dennis and his situation
Mhm.
with, compassion. And I think to myself, how could I help him? And then I was thinking, Boo's on the
Yeah.
call. He works with Experis. We just talked about,
Mhm.
getting connected with jobs. The other part that I heard from Dennis, which is great, based on his experience, and the thing that we profess a lot with our group here that we're missing a little bit on because we're not meeting in person is networking is huge as far
Mhm.
as connecting up with people and people pre-screening you and going, yeah, that person's pretty good. The other thing, and I'll shut up in a minute because I know I'm rambling on, but um, I'm married now happily for many years, but back in the online dating world, online dating and job seeking have a lot of similarities in
Mhm.
that if you know somebody who knows you and they know the other person and they're like, these are cool people, this is a good match, that has a lot more weight than just trying to read something and make a judgment on somebody based on what they wrote.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. Yeah, we can sometimes look at it, think we can look right at the piece of paper, right, the resume, and think, but yeah, just having that conversation helps so much more. Yeah, the automated tracking systems. Yeah. All right. So just kind of want to debrief here, kind of talk through what we did there. So just, 3 simple questions, kind of recap this, nothing earth shattering. So we had, tell me about yourself. What brought you here? What is your biggest challenges? So those are the 3 questions that we use. And then we're going to go a little bit deeper here. And this is kind of what Sue had helped me understand, Sue Baggett, that I mentioned before. So we use these things called probing and laddering. So these are things you can use, and I just use them each once. As business analysts, I'm sure you guys could see a space to use these, like in various situations to try to, like understand, you kind of dig. I mean, it might be something you want to, maybe you're probing around to see, okay, you want to see where, for instance, like, where is Dennis going to take us, right? Was we had that conversation. And then laddering kind of to go up and down is kind of, how does that make you feel? Kind of understand what's the motivating. You can see where these might be helpful. Like I said, if you're talking to a stakeholder or somebody, that kind of understanding, where are they, at, how does it feel for them? It's important to kind of understand that. So these are kind of just a couple things that I learned, like I said, from Sue Baggett, a friend of mine from Power Within Consulting. She's a great speaker. I had a conversation with her and kind of shared this. So I think these are some good things, but just kind of simple little things to kind of build that relationship. As you heard with Dennis, was very helpful. He was being vulnerable there and kind of sharing some things. And I thought that, I think we all kind of, learned a lot there. So I just want to stop and see if there's any questions. I know we kind of went through that pretty quickly, but I know we're getting close on our time, so I don't want to take up too much time. But if somebody has a question or anything, we definitely can go through that some more. Yeah, that's an important point. Michelle mentions that these can go completely different ways depending on what the original question is. And then 2, I think, depending on the person and how. So for instance, like you guys pointed out, Dennis was very vulnerable there. He was willing to do that. That's can be an important step in building a relationship. But that's a thing too. You might have leaders where, they're kind of giving you these. They don't want to be too vulnerable. So yeah, that those are good points though you bring up, Michelle, that Dennis was really helpful in that. Yeah, your approach can be disarming. So yeah, that's a thing too. You have to be kind of your approach, your demeanor. There might be situations where you need to understand how you're coming across. So yeah, very good point. So let's just take I'm just going to do a minute time. I know we're real close here, but just take a second for just a quiet reflection, just for let everybody kind of think about, what are your key learnings, maybe an action item or 2. We're just going to take a minute, let you guys do that, and then we'll kind of go and wrap this up. So I know you guys have few things to finish this up. And feel free as you have a reflection or a learning or an action item, feel free if you feel so, you want to, you can come off mute or you can put it in the chat. That's fine too. Yeah, good point there, Michelle. Dig deeper into things and make sure you're meaning what they are saying matches what you're trying to say. Very good. Coping and laddering can be good tools. Yeah. I appreciate Sue sharing those. Those are really helpful things, especially like you said, with stakeholders. Yeah. Finish the pre-work personality test. Yeah, feel free. Like I said, that stuff's going to be there for a while. So feel free if you guys want to go back through that. It might be helpful, even if you did go through it, to go through it again. See, you might catch some new insights. I've gone through it quite a few times as I was working with Anne Remy, the learning designer. She's got a lot of good stuff there. And you can compare it to Myers-Briggs results, or maybe you have other results. Like I said, there's a lot of good ones out there to kind of see. Excellent. I was going to do a retrospective, but I know we're ending up on time here. So I just want to share with you guys, make sure you connect with me. Feel free, the QR code will take you to my LinkedIn, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can go to my website. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out. But I think we're just a little over time. I appreciate everyone's time. I really appreciate Dennis being willing to participate in that activity, being very vulnerable. I appreciate that. That was very nice. And hopefully you guys got something out of tonight, and I will turn it back over to our leaders. Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing so you guys can, if you have something to share.
Thank you, Tom. That was a great presentation, very interactive. And, again, I encourage everyone